Sotah, page 44, Daf and Daled Amud Aleph. Welcome to our learning as we're getting towards the end of the Masechta and our study between Pesach and Shavuos. So we continue explaining the Mishnah, which talks about what was said to the people before they went to war, to send certain of the people home, etc. So they said, who's the one who engaged with a woman? So we learned both if he engaged someone who was never married, both if he engaged someone who was a widower who was married before, but for him it's his first engagement with her. Both if it was a woman who her husband, his brother, died without children, he has to get married to her. And even 5 brothers waiting to deal with this woman, either for Yibam or Chalitza, they all are now officially engaged to her, so they all go back. But we say leilakach, that he didn't take, meaning excluding those who is forbidden to marry, like a widower is forbidden to marry a kohen gadol. So if he got engaged to a widower, the kohen gadol, he doesn't go back because of it. Or a regular kohen, if it's a woman who's divorced, or got chalitza, or she didn't get married to her brother, her husband's brother when he died without children, or someone who's forbidden to a Jew. For instance, someone's the category of a mamzeres, a bastard, and the Sina, that's a group of people that weren't allowed to marry to the Jews, etc. So the Gemara says maybe this goes against Rabbi Yosef Glili, because Rabbi Yosef Glili says, when it says whoever's afraid, it means he's afraid of his sins. So these are the sins, so therefore he wouldn't include those. We said, no, Rabbi Yosef Glili would include these as well, because we're not talking about people remain in sin, we're talking about someone who he goes according to Rabbah, because Rabbah says that even though a kohen gadol is not allowed to marry a widower, but he's not sinning until he actually has relations. So he can marry without the relations yet. So therefore it can go according to him as well. The rabbis learned Ashabana, someone who built, Ashanata, someone who planted, Asheira. So we learned these are the 3 things we talk about: someone who built a home, someone who planted, and someone who got engaged. So the Torah teaches us the way we have to conduct ourselves in life. The first, a person has to build a home. He has to have a home. And then he has to plant a vineyard, a parnasa, a livelihood. And then he marries a woman. And this is what Shlomo said: first prepare your work outside. And then bring in what's in your field into your home. And then you'll build your home with your wife. So prepare what's out from outside your work. That means build a home. And then you go out into the field. This is carrying your vineyard. And then you'll build your home. This is a woman. Or some say it's a little differently, and we have a few different versions of how we read it. Some say prepare your work that's learning the Torah, the 5 books, and then go out into the field. There's a Mishnah which elaborates on the 5 books, and then you build your home. There's Gemara which solidifies everything you learn and gives you the reasons and explanations. Or some say prepare from outside. This means Gemish Mikra, the 5 books and the Mishnah, which are the laws without any discussions. And then go out into the field, there's Gemara, there's a discussion. And then build your home. This is now, you've learned everything. You have to bring it home. You have to affect how you behave in your actions and your behavior. Or some say, meaning, then now you can, after you do all these things, now you can get rewarded from Hashem. Or some say, so now the Gemara continues like this. And these are the people that don't come back, meaning that whatever they did is not enough reason they can come back from the war. Someone who builds like a gatehouse. So he said that what happens if you build a home exactly the way you built it before? Let's say your home was destroyed, you rebuilt exactly the way it was before. There's nothing new in it, you don't go back. But if you added even 1 row of stones, you go back. Rabbi Lezer says even someone who builds a house in Sharon, there's a place where the houses didn't last very long because of the conditions of the ground, etc., you don't go back as well. Why? Because twice in every 7 years you used to have to rebuild it. And these are the ones who do not leave their place, meaning they don't even go out to outside of the city and to listen to all the details about who goes to war and who doesn't. Someone who built a new house, Rabbanan learned, what is each chadash mean, a new woman? Is it truly a new woman to him? What about if it's a new woman to him only, but she was already married before she's divorced or widowed? How do we know that they're included? So it says Isha. Isha means any woman, even if, as long as it's new to him, even if she was married before, divorced or widowed. So why does it say a new woman? Someone who's new for him. But if you return your divorcee wife, and now you're married again, which you're allowed according to Jewish law, she didn't get married in between, then for that, you don't come back, you go out to war. So it says, the rabbi said, you're not allowed to go out to war. So we would think you don't go out to war. One of these people don't go out to war, but there's still help in the war effort. So he says, which like the other ones, who they fix the roads, they take care of food and drink. So he says, "Lo yaver all of the chol davar." Nothing. They don't go out and involved in war in any way. So I would think that it includes even someone who built the house and did not dedicate it, someone who planted a vineyard and didn't yet eat the fruits, or someone who engaged with the women. So he says, Allah, only on these you don't go out, but other things you go out to help the war effort, but you don't go to the war itself. So why does it say the word lo yavri, you're not to go out, and then it says don't go out to battle? So here we learn that someone who's not supposed to go out to war goes out to war, transgressed 2 sins. So now it's a new mission. The new mission says that now there's the last part of what the enforcers talk to the people, and they say, someone who's afraid and has a weak heart. So Rabbi Kiva says, Kimashmai, simple. We're talking about someone who's afraid to go to war. He's fearful. And we're worried that someone who's fearful will cause everyone else to be fearful. So, someone's scared of a sword, etc., etc. That's what Rabbi Kiva says. Those people shouldn't go to war because they will weaken everyone else's resolve. Rabbi Yosef says, no. We're talking about someone who's scared because their sins will haunt them and will cause them not to be successful. And therefore, the Torah says, for all these, you have to go back for all your sins. Rabbi Yossi says, Amana for a Kohen Gadol, Amana who's engaged to a Kohen Gadol. A regular Kohen is engaged to someone who's not allowed to marry, or even a Jew is not engaged to someone who's not allowed to marry. These are the ones who have a sin in their hands, and they should go back. So then, when the enforcers stopped talking to the people, and now everyone who had to leave left, so now they put people, the captains, by the people. So it says we put some captains in the front of the army, we put some in the back, and they're holding rods of metal in their hand, of steel, and whoever wants to go back, at that point, once they got rid of all the ones who were supposed to go back according to the Torah, whoever wants to go back, they have the right to break his legs, because at this point everyone has to go to war. Why? Because they say they want to make sure the resolve is strong, and the beginning of running is falling. So, and he brings a verse that says that they ran and then they fell before the Plishtim, and a terrible plague happened to the people, and we find it in several places. So now the Mishnah continues. What type of a war are we talking about where the people have the choice to go back in the Mechamas Rishus, in the war that's permissible? But on Mechama Mitzvah, Mechama that you must go, everyone goes, even a Chassan who just got married, even a Kala who just got married, everyone has to go to battle. There's no differences between all these different types of people. Rabbi Yehuda says, when do we say that there's difference between one person and another if they go to war or not in the mitzvah, a war that's a mitzvah? But a war that's an obligation, everyone goes. So now the Gemara is going to explain a few lines of Gemara to explain this Mishnah. What's the difference between Rabbi Yosef basically? They both say that because you have sins in your hand, that's the Yarav Rach Levav, that we're saying you have to go home. So we say the difference is Avera. Rabbi Yosef Glili says that even a sin, a rabbinical sin, is enough for you to say, I'm afraid that the sin will haunt me and I don't have the right merits, and you can go back. Rabbi Yosef says only if it's a sin that's biblical, then you go back. Now the Gemara says, we learned that someone who talks between the putting on the tefillin of the hands, tefillin of the head, and he doesn't make a second bracha, it's like he has a sin in his hands, and he has to go back to war. He has to go back. He's not allowed to go to war. He has to go back. This is included Yarev Rach Levav. He's afraid, and he's weak-hearted. That's according to basically that says even a mitzvah, the Rabban, a light mitzvah, you also go back. Now the Gemara says, this is what the rabbis learned. If someone heard the sound of the trumpets, and he got afraid, or he heard the shields bang against each other of the enemy, and he got afraid, or he heard the sharpening of the swords, and he got afraid, and he started to urinate in his pants. Who says they're allowed to go back? That's according to Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva says that we're talking about fear simply. But according to Rabbi Yosef, that the fear is only about sins. Maybe these people don't go back. So he says, Rabbi Yosef says that if a guy can't hold himself in and urinates in his pants when these things happen, he also goes back, because you're not allowed to weaken your brothers around you. And then when the ones who were the enforcers, were finished all their talking, so it says that then at that point they break the legs of the people who are leaving, who are abandoning. So he says it doesn't make sense when the Mishnah says the beginning of running is falling. It should have said the opposite. The beginning of falling, of a nation falling, is when people start running away. So Mar said that's actually the truth. That's the way it should be read. Now the Gemara continues, what kind of a war are we talking about? It says in the Mishnah with a war that's permissible. But a war that's a mitzvah, the rabbis say that everyone goes to war. Rabbi Yehuda says the war of the mitzvah, there's a difference between those who are just got engaged and those just got married and everyone else, but the war of obligation, there's no difference. So Rabbi Yochanan says this is what the rabbis call reshus, that the difference is this is what Rabbi Yehuda calls a mitzvah. This is what the rabbis call a mitzvah, this is what Rabbi Yehuda calls a chayva. So not really arguing, it's just in terms. Rabbi says like this, when in the war that the Jewish people had, that Joshua led to conquer the land of Israel, everyone agrees that's obligation, everyone must go. In the wars that King David ran just to broaden the land of the Jewish people, everyone holds that's a total permissible war, and there the differences exist. The argument is between Rabban and Rabbi Yehuda is in a war where it's partial defense and partial offense, where you are actually going out to broaden your land, but only to make sure that your neighbors are close, you have less of a chance of surprising you. So one of them, for this, Rabbi Yehuda calls it a mitzvah, and the Chacham, they call it a reshus. What's the difference? According to Rabbi Yehuda, even this war, it says, Oisik mitzvah pat the mitzvah. While you're doing a mitzvah, you don't have to do another mitzvah, so even this war is included in that type of a mitzvah. So we start a new parak now, parak Shi, the 9th parak of Sotah, and the Mishnah says like this: the Egla Rufa, that it says that when they used to take a calf and they would take it to the water, and they would then with the axe cut the head off of the calf and let the blood spill into the water after someone was found dead in between two cities, and they used to measure which city was closer. So how did that process happen? So it says that the elders and the judges have to go out to the place. So it says that there were 3 judges who came from the Sanhedrin, from the top Sanhedrin, the top Jewish court. Yehuda says 5 judges, because it says Kenecha, your elders, Sheftecha, your judges, so that's 2 and 2, and then you can never have an even number of judges, because you always need to go according to the majority, so you add one more, is 5. Now, what happens if they found the person hidden in a mound, or hanging on a tree, or floating in the water? So then this whole law doesn't apply, because it says badam on the ground, and not in any of these situations. What happens if it was found next to a big city, which is on the border, or a city that's full of non-Jews, or a city that has no Bezdin? They wouldn't measure either, because you only measure in a place that has a Bezdin, and it's a Jewish city, and not by the border towns. So that's what the Mishnah says. So the Gemara says, what he says that Egla Rufa, as he said in Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew. How do we know this? Because it says in Egla Rufa, V'anu v'amru, they repeated and they said. And by the Levim, when they gave the blessing, the curse, it says in the Briim, V'anu Levim v'amru, they repeated and they said. So therefore, just like they repeated here is in Hebrew, so also by Egla Rufa, it's in Hebrew. How does Egla Rufa happen? So it says if they found someone who was dead in the middle of the field, and then the Sanhedrin goes out, so 3 go out from the Sanhedrin, should be Shalayim from Shalayim. Yehuda says 5 go out. So why are they arguing? Where did he get the number 3? Where did he get the number 5? So it says like this. Our rabbis learned. It says it says 2 terms. So 2 and 2, and then you don't have a even bezin, so you have to have 1 more. So it's 5. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Shimon says the kenecha 2, and because you can't have 2, you always need an odd number. You have to add 1. So the question is, Rabbi Shimon also says sheftecha. Why does he have to say the next word sheftecha? So he says this is how we know that's the kenecha. What it's talking about, the elders talking about the michadim, the special judges, the top judges from the Sanhedrin. Rabbi Yehuda, how does he know we're talking about the Sanhedrin? Because he said it could say ziknei. Why it says the kenecha, your elders, talking about the famous elders, the ones that come from the best, the top court. Rabbi Shimon said, what is the zikne and not the kenecha? I would say you can take any elder. You don't even need a judge. So therefore it says the kenecha, talking about judges. If it just says the kenecha, I would say even the small Sanhedrin, the 23. So it says sheftecha, that you have to take from the big Sanhedrin. Rabbi Yehuda says this that you take, zikanim doesn't mean judges are not just elder people, because it says zikne somewhere else, and therefore we know from zikne itself why it says the kenecha. So it's telling us that you need to take 2 from 2 and 2 and 5. So the Gemara says, so according to Rab Shimon, it says, why does it say Vishayftecha? To tell us he needs Kinach tells 2 plus 2. Rab Shimon doesn't use the word Vav to learn anything, and therefore he says it's only 3. And this finishes the page of today. Have a great day.